You're still watching Millennium Pulse, and this is Farming Today. On the program, I have somebody from Eggtech Incubators Company, Mr. Omar Hassan, who actually is the director of said company. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, madam. Welcome.
All right, so we're going to get started with some people that, like myself, before a few minutes ago, did not know what exactly Eggtech Incubators does. So tell us a bit about the company. Where did it start from? Where did the dream come in?
Yeah, this company, we started manufacturing egg incubators about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So sometime in 2010, actually before 2010, I used to keep Peking ducks, a bit of village chickens, and first of all, I used to depend on a natural way of hatching. So
Wow.
I used to let them sit on their own eggs to help them to speed up, to increase the production. I used to get the chicks from the mothers a bit early and put them in a brooder so that, like in a warm place so that they can grow away from the mother, and then the mother can start laying again quickly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then we still used to have a lot of challenge because you find that when you have a few chickens in a bigger space, each chicken will be able to find a corner where it can hide the eggs from the others. But once the chickens become plenty, and then they start laying in one area and fighting for eggs. Sometimes when the eggs are too many, the chicken cannot manage to warm all of them, so some will be outside, and those which are exposed to air will get cold and get damaged, and then the chicken will try to get those back in and letting go of some of the good eggs outside.
Okay.
And then it becomes a lot of confusion. And then also, as the chickens sit on eggs, they lose weight because they're not eating for some time, and then the immunity also drops because of that energy loss during that incubation process. So a lot of people advise me to say, look, if you want to do this on large scale, you want to grow your business, you will not be able to grow this village chickens, ducks, quails business without an egg incubator or without finding a reliable hatchery where you can take your eggs. So I decided to look for a hatchery in Makeni, where we used to stay. And I found a hatchery nearby, and I started taking my eggs to the hatchery. So the first 1 or 2 times, I think they're trying to pull my leg. So they gave me almost 100% hatch. But I could tell that those were not all my ducks, because I only had white ducks, and the chicks
And some of
had
them were
different
not
colors.
so white. Okay.
I had brown and different breeds, actually. So the more I frequented taking eggs there, I discovered a lot of customers who were complaining that we brought in a lot of eggs and we didn't get any chicks. And then when I did my own research, I discovered that I was actually keeping the eggs too long. I was keeping eggs sometimes for 3 weeks to have a good number of eggs, so I don't go there every often, to cut down on transport cost and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I discovered that actually they're not advising me that the eggs have to be fresh, they don't have to be washed,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to be touched a lot by hands. So
Because of infection?
I discovered that, because usually when you touch eggs, the sweat from your hand can force the bacteria to go into, because the eggs have got pores. Even when you wash eggs, because what happens is when the egg gets cold,
Mm-hmm.
it shrinks, so it sucks in all the bacteria from the shell.
Wow.
So all this information that I started looking at online, that's why, of course, we'll come to that part we were discussing before the beginning of the program, that people have to do a lot of reading.
Research, yeah.
Because when you're getting into a business, if you don't do research, your own research, because if you just listen to somebody, maybe that person doesn't also have the correct information.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compare research, especially on the internet, from different sites and from different farms, then you can get more knowledge that way. So the more I read, I discovered that they were not to blame alone, because definitely some customers were taking bad eggs, and that's why. But what they wanted business, so they also had their own chickens and ducks that they kept at their farm.
That they would put in?
They would also put in eggs, so at least customers would find chicks, because when customer brings eggs, he's waiting for 30 days or 21 days, and he expects to find chicks. So they try to keep the customers happy, and at the end of the day, the 2 or 3 kwacha they were charging for hatching 1 egg, it was still profitable even if the egg was yours. So even if you had your own eggs and you sold chicks, it's still profitable, because the egg only costs you the feed that the chicken eats.
Right.
It doesn't cost much. So when I discovered that, I found a lot of customers who were complaining, and then they started also doing the same to me. I was taking 30 eggs and they were giving me 3 or 4. Right. And they say, no, look, we have power cuts. Sometimes our genset, we run out of fuel. They started giving excuses. But then I thought to say, why don't I look for a big incubator that I can buy and I can actually get some of these customers that come here. I looked at that as an opportunity.
Yes.
I said, look, I see a lot of people complaining. If I can take them aside and say, look, I've got a hatchery, and I'll do it honestly. Actually, in the beginning, and this was wrong, I thought maybe they were also stealing some chicks because I didn't know yet the challenges until I tried it myself. So I said, look, if I'm going to be honest and give these people what they hatch, actually, these people had an office where they picked eggs from customers, and the machines were in a different place. So there was a lady that dealt with the people. So I said, no, I want transparency. I want to show the customers where I've put their eggs, and tell them, look, if they don't hatch, these are your eggs. You can get them if they hatch, but they can come and see. So this was the idea that
was your plan.
Popped into my mind. But then I didn't have enough money to buy an incubator because I started going around, check for incubator, and it wasn't going to be affordable. So one day when I was at Livestock Services behind Showgrounds, actually in Showgrounds opposite Mandahil, I was buying my feed from there. So when I went in to buy my feed, on my way out, there's a board, and this is a very good thing that they did for the farmers, the community, that people that buy. They've got this billboard where people can stick their adverts. And, like if they're looking for something, they're selling something, they've got a board where they put their adverts. So I looked at the board and I saw a picture of a very nice incubator, and it said the 1,700 kwacha incubator for sale. At that time, it was maybe 10 years ago, but it felt affordable. Okay, so this is affordable instead of buying. So I called this person and I said, where's your shop? He said, no, there's no shop, but you can meet me at such and such a filling station.
Okay.
And I was like, is this guy selling these things? Right. So I started suspecting something. But when I went, there was this old white man. I still see him around. He's a good friend now. So when I went to him, he brought the incubator and like what was in the photo. So there was a photo of an incubator that was downloaded online. But the incubator was actually a box like those transparent boxes used for selling fritters. A transparent box with trays inside. And then on the lid, he had put a heater and a thermostat. And so when I looked at it, I've always liked fixing things, trying to be a bit technical. So when I looked at it, he said, this is the incubator. I said, do you make them? He said, yes. And does it work? He said, yes. I said, but look, from my reading, incubators are supposed to turn the eggs. How do you turn? He said, no, you tilt the whole box to the right and every few hours. So I said, then, okay, it's just what I noticed that I felt that an incubator is not a very difficult item to make. That's what I felt. Okay. So I said, look, instead of trying to look for money to buy one, let me try to make one. And this is how it started, with an old desk that I had in my room,
and that's
a wooden desk.
Started
and I know insulation is supposed to be there, because when I asked him about insulation, he said, look, if you want, you can also put a blanket around it. But then I got my wooden box, I put foil around it, I put a bit of foam, and I started experimenting. So of course, the first time when I did the box, I knew that I need a certain temperature, which is 37 approximately from my reading. But then
how did you regulate that?
Yeah, that was the problem. I didn't know about thermostat initially. So I didn't know about thermostat, but I got a 100-watt bulb. I put it in the box, and I got the digital clocks that they sell in Kamwala. There's some digital clock that has a temperature. So I opened that clock because it was a bit technical, and I wanted to find out which
part of it
is responsible. So I kept touching all those little diodes until the temperature went up. So I cut that diode, connected a wire to it,
and put it in
and I put it inside. But then what I discovered is that the temperature felt hot. So when I put the diode under my armpit, it gave me 32. So I discovered that because we did in physics at school that there's resistance that increases with the length of the cable. So I discovered that the sensor is now reading 32 when it's 37 because of the wire. So I just set it at 32.
And just did the math.
And then I got a dimmer switch that they use on the light bulb. Like in our house, we had a switch where you can reduce the intensity. So I thought that if I reduce the intensity, it should reduce the heat.
Okay.
So I did that in the night, and the temperature, I managed to make it at stable at 37. And I got all the eggs that I had for the ducks, put them into the machine. And at that time, I was doing my business management at Zikas. And I went for school, and I came around 14 hours when it was hot. Because it was cooler at night, I managed to get 37. When it was hot, it was already 42. So that's why you need a thermostat that can cut off the temperature completely. So I got discouraged, took out the eggs. And at that time, my mom was like, why didn't you just let us eat the eggs instead of spoiling them in the machine?
So when was your next attempt? When did you finally get success?
So I was sharing with a friend who was working in a refrigeration company, and he told me, no, there's something called a thermostat. And I managed to get a simple thermostat for a geyser. That's what I started with. And I put in 3 eggs this time. And out of those 3 eggs, I used to turn them manually by hand. And after 21 days, I managed to get 2 out of the 3.
Wow.
That was the
well,
first.
That was the first.
And 5 days before the hatching, I had actually somehow given up.
To farming today. I'm talking to Mr. Omar Hassan. In case you're just joining us, he is the director at Eggtech Incubators Company. And just before the break, you were telling us about this fridge.
Yes.
So tell me, it was one of those upright fridges?
Upright deep freezer, but of course I put it on lying down. And I discovered that opening the door of the machine to turn the eggs was also contributing to some of the eggs being damaged because of, you keep cooling them up and down.
Right.
So this time I managed to make, it was still manual turning, but I managed to be turning from, I made a hole. So I had a wire that goes through.
Wow.
And each egg was in its own wire box. So I made a box of wires and the wood underneath. So when I pulled that wire, they would roll.
Oh my, it is amazing the level of ingenuity you get when you're motivated, hey?
Yeah, it's true. So this time I knew that, look, there is hope. I can hatch eggs using this simple technology.
Yes.
And all the eggs need is 37.5 degrees. Try to keep constant, a little bit higher or lower. It's not a very big problem, but you keep around 37 degrees.
Range,
and then moisture. So you have got trays in the machine that have water in them. And as long as the moisture is above 50, 60, even if it goes to close to 80, no big problem.
Okay.
And then turning the eggs. So that's where there was a challenge. So at least 2-3 times a day. So we used to turn morning, evening. If I'm around during the day, I would turn more times. But we had this big fridge now that could hatch 200-300 eggs. And I started doing a lot of ducks. I used to take them to Tuesday market. Some people would remember me from Tuesday market, like in 2010, 2011. I used to stand there selling ducks in the sun the whole day. That's how I started. And I never had a car that time. I used to look for someone to take me, one of my brothers, sometime a friend. But I used to take a cage, sell the ducks from there. And I used to always have this, negotiations with funny customers.
Yes, trying to haggle you down to a good price.
But then there was some people that encouraged me. There was a very nice lady. I always, remember to talk about her, Auntie Angela, who had a farm in Makeni also. She got a few ducks. And when these ducks started laying, she started bringing eggs for me to hatch. So that time I started saying, okay, let me increase the capacity. I had more machines. But then the same lady started doing a lot of ducks. And we used to get customers from Congo who used to come and buy ducks in dollars for a good price.
Wow.
And actually, we used to increase the price when they come, because what I discovered is, at some point, guys from Comesa, Chibolia market, they used to buy all the ducks, certain time of the year. So I asked one of the guys, why do you get ducks this time? They said, no, this time of the year, we have these guys from Congo that come. And in Congo, because it was a French colony, they eat more duck than chicken. So they like ducks. And ducks are much easier to do than chicken, because they are more immune to diseases, immune to the cold, to the rain. Yes, they don't die easily. But of course, people don't eat them much here. But in Congo, that was a big market, and people used to come. And then I don't know what happened between two of the marketeers at the market that didn't agree or didn't like each other. And one of them ended up telling the Congolese guys where they get the ducks.
Oh.
So these Congolese guys used to come now straight to the farm.
It worked out for you.
And then they wanted big orders that I couldn't handle. They were asking sometime, we can get 500 ducks at once. We can get 1,000. So I say, no, we have to increase. So we started increasing the incubator capacity. But then I had the other friends that used to bring eggs for hatching. I used to also get ducks from them.
Okay.
But then some of them got interested and told us, where can we get, can you make for us an incubator? So please make it. Although the incubators were more difficult that time because you had to turn and whatnot. But then I started, when I saw customers interested in incubators, that's when I started trying to find out about how to make them turn automatically and how to have all this, the temperature. I managed to find temperature controllers that are digital on eBay. I started by buying few components off eBay. Timer that is because I used to make the timer myself using a clock. So the wire would touch the other wire, but then I managed to get timers. And then we started improving bit by bit.
Yes.
But eventually, people started buying, and as people bought, there was a bit of money, so
you were able to do
more research and development, and then we started saying, okay, look, wood. I had a customer one day who walked in who used to be an ambassador in one of the African countries. And he came and he said, no, I wouldn't buy a wooden machine. This is wood. Eventually, it will get, damaged with the moisture and everything. So look, I've seen the Chinese machines, the metal and this, and I wouldn't waste my money. And he went away. I didn't like it first, but when I thought about it, I said, look, maybe others think like him and don't mention that, no, they don't buy it because it's wood and whatnot. Although we used to cover it with floor mat, try to make it look nice and so the water doesn't affect it. But then I said, look, we have to try to get it making using steel.
Okay.
So we got a welder in, we got square tubes, started welding the frame, and we started getting iron sheets, which we used to cut with a snipes, which was very hectic in the beginning.
Wow.
But then from the factory where they used to make roofing sheets, where I used to buy the iron sheet, I asked them,
is it possible to
no,
do
how
that?
I wanted to see the factory, how they cut the sheets so straight.
Okay.
So they showed me they have this machine called a guillotine. And I asked them, I said, don't you have an old guillotine that you're not using? And they had this one that they was trying to sell as scrap metal because the blades were broken. I got it, managed to import the blades, and then the company kept growing. Now we're cutting the steel professionally. We managed to just looking every time somebody gives us an idea, we'd try to see if it will work. So now it's a big factory. We're producing more than 300 incubators a month.
Wow.
300 to 500.
That is a lot of incubators.
Yeah.
So other than the incubators, what other products and services do you provide?
Of course,
Eggtech?
we got into the solar and energy sector because we had a lot of people having challenges with the load shedding sometimes. The incubators, if they go for long hours without power, a lot of eggs would get damaged. So people wanted to buy batteries and inverters. And now we're actually doing an incubator that can run fully on solar. Yes.
Wow.
It runs on a 12-volt battery.
And all of this was done here in Zambia.
Yeah.
All the research and
yes,
everything,
yes.
putting it together, that's Zambia.
Actually, we have a solar incubator, and I've not seen any company in other countries selling an incubator with our power consumption that can run on an incubator for 1,100 eggs that can run on one 12-volt, 200-amp battery the full day. So with maybe 4 or 5 panels, then you're done without power at all.
Okay. Well, speaking of other countries, thank you for bringing that up. Do you export your incubators out of Zambia?
Yeah, we've got a lot of neighboring countries. First of all, we had there was a pastor from Liberia that was here in Zambia. Okay. And he wanted to go back with an incubator. So we had to go to the airport to take it. And then we started saying, why don't we try with the neighboring countries? So we attended some shows in Malawi. We've attended shows in Zimbabwe. And then now we've got people, especially from the Congo. They're trying now to produce their own because they've seen we're failing to supply them with what they want. So now we've got customers from Congo that have been buying incubators. We have a customer also in Zimbabwe that we always take the machines to Chirundu, and they have to swipe. We have to go with a swiping machine to Chirundu so they can swipe for the machines from there. So we have people getting now in Botswana, Mozambique. We've been having a lot of calls from neighboring countries because we boost our adverts on Facebook to
social media. Hey, it does the things.
Yeah,
All right. So another question that I have is, with all this experience that you've had from when you began, all the eggs, rolling the eggs and all the experience, what in your opinion would you say is the state of the poultry industry in this country?
The state of the poultry industry?
Like, what's lacking? What can be done? Should people just go into it? This is where we're going to go back to that research part of it.
You made the question more clear. Yeah, I understand now. No, you see, there is a lot of potential in food production because with food, you can never go wrong. Now, you see, when the economy gets a bit bad, the whole world is suffering now an economic problem. And in that case, you find that luxury things like people would do with diamonds and stuff like that, people might not, those might lose value. But then food value will keep increasing because the population keeps getting more and people need to eat. So food production is a very good business. The reason I also encourage people to go into incubators is because when you have an incubator, I feel it's a much better business than, for example, doing layers where most of your capital is in the livestock itself. Right. With the incubator, you don't need a lot of investment in the livestock. You don't need to have a lot of layers because with a few layers, you can have a lot of eggs, but your money is in a fixed asset. It's in an incubator, which we actually, I don't know if I mentioned that, we give 10 years free repairs. And when I mentioned this and put it on my brochure, some of my customers told me, you're making a mistake because how are you going to manage to fix an incubator for someone for 10 years? They're going to use this against you and they're going to force it. I said, no, it's okay.
But obviously you're confident in the product that you're making.
Because it's a simple product. And then the other thing is we do, in the first 6 months, we give the spare for free because we feel if a spare breaks down within the first 6 months, someone hasn't yet started seeing the benefits of the incubator. But after 6 months, the customer buys the spare part and we already have a good markup on the spare part. So if we make a little bit of profit on the spare, we don't charge for the fitting or removing, or if it's a problem that doesn't need a spare part, we don't charge. Because I've noticed, like, especially in Zambia, I don't know about other countries, but you find that professional places where professional services are being done, there's always people trying to get the employees to do the job for them on a Sunday or behind their back. So I said, look, if we do charge for that, people will be trying to get a cheaper way.
Exactly.
And our workers will be always ill and funeral and they won't be coming for work. So what we did is we said spares are in the stores, we can control them, and the guys are being paid monthly anyway. So they fix any machine that has a problem. So that way we managed to keep our customers happy that if they bring the machine to the service center, no charge at all. If there's a spare that is completely worn out and it's after 6 months, you can just buy that spare. And there's no spare that exceeds 1,000 kwacha. So most spares are 200, 300 in that range, unless it's the main component, like the main motor, which is rarely breaks down.
The problem.
No.
Okay. So are there any measures that you would advise that require much attention to boost the country's foreign investment?
Yes, of course, we would advise people to focus on supporting local industries more, and also people to look at items that are not being manufactured locally and try to get into that. Because, for example, we are trying to buy all our materials locally. We can find steel locally, and that makes it cheaper and easier now to get, but we cannot find a lot of other components, which are very easy. You know, some of these Chinese companies are actually just small workshops in small house apartments, and they're manufacturing things that we feel are difficult. When I used to think about an incubator in the past, I used to look at it as a sophisticated machine. I wouldn't think that I would manage to make one day, but with experimenting and trying to find out, because everything has got steps, procedures, and raw materials that can be used. And some of these things don't need very expensive you know, they don't need like a very computerized machinery to make them, you know. So if we start getting into, like now we have got the temperature controller that controls the temperature, we have to buy it in China. But the companies that make these things, they just buy the boards, they buy the diodes, and they teach people how to solder. These things can be done here, because if we can get people to manufacture spare parts for us, the trays of eggs, plastic trays, imagine we have to import.
So obviously the ideal would be to source every single material that you use in your incubators locally.
Yeah, because most of the raw materials actually are coming out of our country.
Anyway, in the first place.
Yes, because all these items, if like the motor is expensive because it contains copper. And and the Chinese told me, do you want a good quality motor? It will be $12. A low quality motor will be $3 because this has got aluminium and this one has got copper. And of course, we are the kings of copper here.
All right. So obviously, with a business such as yours, there are challenges that come. You've told us some of the challenges of developing the product. But this year, we were hit by something very unexpected, the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes. How did this affect your company?
Of course, initially in February, when everyone was freaked out, we had to stop everybody completely, because, you know, we have a workshop where a lot of people have to work close to each other. So we said, guys, for a month or two, let's see how things go. So almost for 1 month, we just had the sales people working, but manufacturing, we somehow stopped. But then, of course, that affected us, because now up to now, we are still under pressure with orders and trying to catch up with the orders and whatnot. But then, of course, it affected, because even we had employees at some point in March, April that fell ill. So everybody was freaked out. I couldn't go to work as well. So it does have an effect, but I feel it's getting better now.
It's getting better now? Okay, definitely. So even in terms of buying power with the people that are your target market, did you see a difference between when COVID-19 just started and now? Yes.
Now we don't feel the effect anymore. In January, February, March, April, the sales were very bad. And people were, even some people that had paid money were asking for a refund. I don't know what they were. Maybe they were thinking they have to use the money for a coffin instead.
Wow.
So but then things are getting better now. People
much better.
Although we still advise people to still remember to put on their masks, to take safety precaution, because, you know, once in other countries, when the COVID reduced, or people started becoming careless,
they got the
worse.
Second surge.
So people still have to be careful. But we believe that life should still go on, and people should still do business and buy and sell. And otherwise, it's affecting our economy if we all try to hold back.
Exactly. One last question before I let you go. You're in manufacturing now after trial and error. And I feel like I need to emphasize this, because, oh my goodness, in case you just joined us, you missed out on a great story about perseverance and trying to get the end result. But you being in manufacturing right now, after everything that you know, given a chance, would you do it all again? Would you still be in manufacturing? If not, what other business would you be in?
Now, I would still be in manufacturing, although I still advise people that there is a lot of other businesses. Of course, as a manufacturer, I feel that manufacturing is the best, because if you're buying and selling, so many people can do that. But manufacturing is a bit unique. And if you can manufacture a product that many people haven't gotten into yet, and there'll be more opportunity. And I am seeing a lot of new industries coming up in Zambia, because we used to buy insulation from abroad, the white foam, like the one you find in the fridges and deep freezers. But now there's a company in Makeni manufacturing that. So, and it's they use a very, the raw material comes in very small packages, but then when they put it in the machine, it expands. So I've seen, so we just encourage people. But then at the end of the day, I remember a friend of mine who passed away, Mr. Muyanga, and he always used to say that poverty and is by choice. It's not a so no one should complain, because there's a lot of things that people can do, but someone just has to be open-minded and try to do a lot of research, reading and researching, and trying to watch programs like this about farming on this TV station is going to give people a lot of ideas. So I've seen, look, there's a lot of, especially in food, fish. And if you're near the river, near a stream, because I've started doing fish as well now. Yeah, so you can do fish, you can do different animals, birds. It's very easy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very easy.
All right. So before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to say to everybody that's watching at home?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to ask everybody to, if they're planning to buy an incubator, you don't have to go outside Zambia or to make an order from overseas, because we are here. We give you backup service. We are here. You are welcome to come to our farm. Even before planning to buy, you can come for a tour to see how we are keeping our birds, and to ask questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? And we actually help our customers, also teaching them how to fix their own machines.
Okay.
And this actually helps us, because we don't have to be always occupied, because some people try to hide so much what they do, and it becomes a headache for them, because now they have to fix each and every. But now we've sold over 5,000 machines in this 10 years. Just looking from our serial numbers, we've sold over 5,000 machines in Zambia, and I don't think there's any area where we've not reached. All over Zambia, we've done deliveries, because we do free delivery to any part in Zambia. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for a very, very informative interview.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. In case you missed out, I don't know what to say to you. It was an amazing discussion with Mr. Omar Hassan, who is the director at Eggtech Incubators. It's been a great one. I hope you've been informed. And of course, I'm going to encourage you to always do your research. Always figure things out before you jump in legs first in anything that you do. This has been Farming Today, and my name is Nalukwe Mufungulwa Muchindu.